In order for us to grow individually and as a whole, these conversations are necessary. Let's get it. Welcome back to Empowering Real Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you have subscribed to the channel, the podcast, and we're going to dive right in. If you're watching on screen, then you see that I am not here by myself. So I'm going to allow my guest the honor of introducing himself. Hello, hello.
Hello, Coach K. My name is Mitch Weisburgh, and I'm coming to you from just outside of New York. And basically, I write about and teach about and talk about mindsets, mostly about resourcefulness, resilience, and collaboration. Those are my
I
three
love it.
elements.
Now, you guys all probably already know when you heard him say the first thing he talks about is mindset. So you already know I definitely had to make sure I brought him on Empowering Real Talk because that's what we talk about all the time, right? We're so stuck in survival mode when it comes to our thinking mechanisms and things like that. So to be able to chat with someone today that's going to, one, talk about that more in depth, and two, give you tips, strategies, and tools to help you overcome that, I'm all on board for that. So thank you again for being here.
Well, thanks to you. And I think after 15 minutes, everybody is just going to know the one thing that they have to do to live a happy life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your backstory, Mitch, and just kind of what got you wanting to talk all about mindset.
So, well, my backstory is I started and I ran a professional development company for
Mm,
well, really for adults on technology from around 1980 to 2000, and then I wanted to. I could see that teaching people how to use computers was not going to be a growth industry anymore, so I wanted to get into something else, and I chose to go into really education because I felt that in around 2001, 2002, that technology could be the key to allowing education to be this slingshot that
mm,
allowed kids from any background to be able to live successful lives. And I thought, wow, technology can really do this. And so I started advising education publishers and then technology publishers. And I did that for about 14, 15, 16 years.
nice.
And around 2017 or so, I started like having this thought that, I've been in here for 15 years and education is still not allowing kids to grow up to be, successful, happy, productive people. And it's like, so, something's wrong. It's not just the technology. And at the same time, I got an email from a university in Niger, of all places, which is one of the poorest countries in the world,
Mm,
asking if I would talk to their undergraduates about education technology in the US. And
mm,
I was like, education technology in the US has got to be so different from what people in another country need.
right.
Okay. So I don't really know how that's going to benefit an undergraduate. And at the same time, this unhappiness I have with the education system. And so on a lark, I just put the two of them together and sent them an email that said, I don't think that education technology is really the right topic for these kids, but kids today really should start understanding, you know, how how our brains make decisions, how successful people make decisions that allow them to be
Right.
successful, even in the face of adversity, even in the face of people who oppose them. And so I'd like to talk to these, well, I call them kids, but they're 18 to 25 years
Right.
old. Okay. Okay. So I'd like to talk to these kids about what I call sense making. And then they got back to me and we agreed that I would teach a 2-day workshop twice to the undergraduates. This is 2017, so I was going to teach it in February of 2018. And, as because like you're a problem solver, I can see that. So, you see a problem, you come up with a solution,
Yeah.
you talk to somebody about it. Heaven forbid they say yes, because then you have to figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Right. So now I have to figure out, well, how am I going to teach a 2-day course on this? I've never done anything like this before. Right. So, my way is like, so take a smart pill, start reading everything that you can. So I started reading books on economics, which is kind of a decision making, right?
Yeah.
Psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, selling, teaching, military strategy, and all these different
Awesome.
fields had different ways of thinking about being successful. but there just seemed to be some common threads that nobody was weaving together. So I figured what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach this 2-day course and I'm going to base it on 3 different elements. And again, and the resourcefulness part of it is how do our brains make decisions and why do they mislead us and what could we do about it in order to be resourceful even when our brains start to lead us in the wrong way. So that's one. Two, how do we make sense about situations? Because inevitably, we look at a problem, let's say, and we think, okay, there's got to be a right solution. I just have to find the right solution.
Mhm.
Find the right solution, which means that anybody with a different solution is wrong, right? So we just have to tell them that they're wrong, and they'll go along with this. We, give them more information, give them the logic, and either they're jerks or they're going to follow us, right?
Right.
Right? So, and on top of it all, we think we're gonna do this and it's gonna solve the problem, and then we can move on to
Mhm.
something else. And how many times do we have a, complex situation where the first thing that we do completely solves the problem? Like, never,
Ever.
right?
Like, ever.
Yeah. So it's how should we be thinking about problems that prepares us for the fact that not everybody's gonna agree with our solution, that
Mhm.
maybe other people can help us come up with better solutions, and that the first thing that we do is going to give us information back, but it's not going to solve the problem. So we can use that information in order to adjust rather than use that information in order to judge like it was this person's fault or
Yeah.
it's the situation's fault or it's my fault. I'm an idiot. I can never do anything right. So instead of those judgment calls, it's to be able to say, okay, I tried this. This information came back. Maybe we should try this. And how do you develop that type of a mindset? So that's I call it resilience. And
Yeah.
the third part of it was the collaboration, which is no matter what we're going to do, other people are going to be involved, and conflict is inevitable,
Woo!
right? But collaboration is a choice. So
Yes.
we could choose that even though we have these conflicts, even though these people are disagreeing with us, they're not doing what we say that they should do. They're trying to compete with us. They're hurting us. We don't like them or whatever. Our job is to move forward. So how do we move forward with people anyhow, even though they're getting in our way or we may not like them or they're trying to hurt us?
Yeah.
Because there's got to be, that by far the majority of the time, there are ways that we could move towards our goals anyhow. So this idea of conflicts and collaboration was the third element. So I pulled together at the time of this 2-day workshop,
Right.
flew out to Niamey, Niger, taught the 2 days, and at the end of the 2 days, I'm like, and that's sense making, and they stood up and cheered.
Mm.
'Cause, like, nobody tells any of us
No.
that just because we know something is true, doesn't make it true, because that's just a story that our brains are telling us. But if we can realize that it's a story, we can write our own story. We can, and so, um since 2018, when I first started that, I've been slowly moving, and by 2022, 2023, I was really
Mhm.
full on with, "This is my life's mission." If we could have a critical mass of people who really knew how to tap into their own resourcefulness, who knew how to assess situations no matter what happens so that they continue to move forward, and who knew how to work with other people even if the people opposed them and even if they disagreed with
Mhm.
them, wouldn't, first of all those people be happy? And if there's a critical mass, wouldn't that lead us to actually solving all these issues that we face? And so my mission, and it's an arbitrary number, I know, but it's like, so with this planet of 8 billion people, if we could get 5 million people who could tap into these skills anytime they were approaching a new situation, wouldn't that move us all forward? That's the goal.
Man, all so forward. Like, I love just hearing this, and we've, chatted before, but like hearing it now too, it just fulfills me so much to hear that because we
Thank you.
share so many similarities with regards to the mission of really getting people to write their own stories
Right,
because we will allow 50 other people to tell our story,
right,
and I think that when it comes to two, and this is something that I had to learn because growing up, I had that mindset, oh, I've got to listen to this person. And I was reacting out of just fear, not clear on what I wanted in life. So because I wasn't clear on what I wanted, I would do things that really did not benefit me. I was a people pleaser times 5,000, you
Mhm.
know, but I was letting everybody else tell my story. I was letting everybody else narrate my story because my story always involved me supporting somebody else, doing something for somebody else. But when it was like, "Well, Keisha, what are you doing for you?" And it's like, I'll get my blessings because I'm helping everybody else." I did
Right.
not have a
Nope.
story for myself. So that transformational shift for me came in 2020, and understanding that I'm not I'm tired of being in fight or flight mode, and I'm ready to, like, open my mind and expand and collaborate. But also too, because you touched on so many things, so I'm just kinda going back and reiterating on some of those things because 'cause they're very impactful and powerful. I love working with people, but people don't always wanna work because they feel like that you're trying to control them,
Mhm.
and that's not the case. Being able to want to collaborate doesn't mean you're trying to control. It means that you're wanting to make that impact with somebody else as well. So, like being able to hand over and say, okay, you know what? I'm open to receiving the insight that you had to say, that you have to say,
Mhm.
and I receive it. And I literally just talked about conflict recently to a group of people that I was speaking with because people feel like that conflict doesn't have to happen. It does.
It does.
We all have differences of opinions, views, impacts, values, beliefs. So, why do you feel like there's not going to be any form of conflict? I welcome conflict, healthy conflict, not conflict that's going to involve me having to, go over here and grab a weapon or
Mhm.
anything like
Right.
that. But there is a such thing as healthy conflict. And I really want us to be able to adapt into that. I want to ask you though, how do you feel like the survival mindset, which is kind of what I described for years for myself,
Mhm.
and 2020, I started getting out of that survival mindset. But how do you think it affects our relationships and like our decision making and our emotional regulation? Because I know that it affects it all together,
Yeah.
but also it has separate things. I'd love to hear your insight on that. Right.
It's a lot of it is really pulling together things from people who are a lot smarter than me, and that
Mm,
even includes, or I should say even, but includes your guests because, like you've had, one of this, Lady Mohammed was one of the
yes.
people that you talked to and she talked about the self-awareness journey. Focusing on the negative ends up not changing anything, but you can have these difficult conversations, and there's always gonna be obstacles, but when you're
Yeah.
centered, it's like just part of what you're doing, you know?
Yes.
And you had a
Oh, yes. Yes.
okay, and she
Yes.
was and she talked about how when you feel that way, your whole body is able to heal itself,
Mhm.
and you can be whole. So it's like there's a lot of people who are trying to approach this from different angles, and I'm just one of those people. Now,
Yeah.
in the way I view it, I kind of separate, and it oversimplifies the brain, but into
Mhm.
two different parts: the survival brain and the resourceful brain. And the
Mm.
survival brain is the parts of the brain that first developed in the first animals that learned that could move. So it's hundreds and hundreds of millions of years of evolution. And the goal of our survival brain is just that, to survive.
Yeah.
That part of the brain has to react to very little information very quickly and focus the whole organism on whatever it feels you have to do in order to survive. Because if it's
Right.
wrong, you die.
Mm.
And if you die, you don't reproduce, the organism
Right.
is over. So that part of the brain wakes up from a stimulus in as little as like 2/100ths of a second. I mean, faster than that. And it tends to do one of five different things. We're all familiar with fight, flight, and freeze.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it also looks at what are the things that you already know how to do well that you can do without thinking. Okay. Those are your habits or your fluency.
Right.
Okay. And then it also looks at, especially for us as human beings or mammals, it also looks at what's the rest of the group doing. I mean, your group, not just everybody,
Right.
but
Right.
whoever your tribe is or your group is, what are they doing? What do you have to do to belong? What do you have to do to to fit in? What can you do to mimic what everybody else is doing? And it's looking
Mhm.
for one of those 5 different or some combination of those 5 different things in order to
Right.
quickly come in less than a second to a decision on what you should do. And it's generally out of either habit or fear or anxiety that it's coming to this decision. Well, to be centered, to be resourceful, we have to use a different part of the brain. And generally, we've been calling that the resourceful parts of the brain. Again, for simplicity purposes, we'll
Mhm.
say it's the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that's right behind our forehead. Well, that part of the brain wakes up to stimulus in 2 to 3 seconds. So just imagine
Mm.
what happens in less than a second. Our survival brain, out of fear, has
Yeah.
more often than not has come up with what we have to focus on. Our prefrontal cortex wakes up and it's ready to you do critical thinking, creativity, executive function, all those things. But it says, "Oh, we've already made a decision to do that," so it comes
Right.
up with a story or a reason. And that story or reason is just a story. It could be rewritten. But when we're aware that our brains can do that, we can change that. It's like, oh my gosh, um, Coach K just criticized me and I started getting angry at her. But you know something? She's probably wrong if she thinks that I'm wrong. But there might be 10% of what she's saying that will be helpful to me. Maybe it's worth my while
Yeah.
to be curious and to find out more about what she's trying to say, and maybe I can change a little bit? So
Yeah.
when we're aware, that what the brain does, there's actually, I categorize it as 4 different types of things that we can do in order to reset, okay? Uh
All of this knowledge and these gems, and it is, um, my client, and I'll laugh about that because my clients do, like, they get in their feelings when I'm coming, giving them some, raw, uncut feedback, but once they step out of the emotional side of things, because you label it that, I actually label it thinking with our emotions and reacting
Yep,
out of emotion.
yep.
um, they come the next day after they've thought about it, because they probably don't wanna come right to me like, "Okay, you was right," but I love that I've taught them to be able to know that regardless on if they disagree with me in the beginning and change and say that they do agree after they've thought about it, I don't judge them for that, and I don't judge
Right.
anybody, period, right? I don't judge it when it comes to how they're making, but I have to know that you're consciously trying to make efforts to change, because if
Mhm.
you know that these instant reactions are causing havoc in your life, they're having negative aspects in your
Which
life.
they almost have to. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
times where you have to react that way, okay? But
Yeah.
you're 100%,
Yeah.
1,000% right. Is like, in our modern society that's everything's so complex, having these
Yes.
reactions, they're fear-based,
Yep. They
right?
are definitely fear-based, and I think that that's we're stuck in that, and society has normalized that. Let's be real.
Yep.
Society has normalized fear being the thing. Fear mongering and, oh my God, you got to hurry up and do this, because if you don't, you do still have time to make decisions that are going to benefit you, you
Or
know?
look, you're a woman, this is your role. And
Yep.
if you deviate from that role, you're wrong. Or you're a
Yeah.
man, this is your role. You have to, if you deviate from that role, or you got to make this much money, or
Yep.
you've got to do this. And when you do that, you're fulfilled your role. But then you do it and you find out like, well, wait a minute, I'm not happy yet, right?
Yep, that part. And I think just the shift for me came when I just began to pause, because I have a very overactive brain. I think and instantly it'll be like, but I've trained my mind. And,
Mhm.
I would love to have 100% accuracy rate, but I just don't think that that's possible. But I think the shift for me just came for understanding to pause long enough to say, am I reacting to protect myself, or am I responding to move forward?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, anything that I do wants to make sure that it is something that is moving me forward and not holding me back.
Yep.
So that's like an everyday affirmation for myself. I self-talk, and I encourage my clients to do that too. And I don't know if that's something that you encourage as well. Just having that self-conversation daily, 2, 3 times a day. I could be in my rearview mirror in my car and having self-talk with myself. So just kind of like that's a form of reassuring. Do you think that that's something that we should do, like, just day to day?
So the very short answer is absolutely.
Mhm.
Before I go into that, I'd like to just go through because that's one of the 4 different types of things you could do.
Oh, nice,
So I'm
nice.
gonna
Okay, I'm
so I'm
on
gonna go
top
into
of it.
I'll
Go
just go
ahead,
into
Mitch.
the first one, which is self-awareness,
Yeah,
because before you can do the self-talk even, yeah, to be aware, like, "Oh
that's
my
true.
gosh, this is my survival brain. This is my limbic brain reacting." There's psychiatrists who call this our part X. Our part X, which
Mhm.
is always against us trying something new, so always makes us feel miserable whenever we come up with what we want to do.
Yeah,
Okay. And so it's like, this is just my part X, or this is just my saboteurs. And so that self awareness is the first thing. And sometimes just the self awareness is enough. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting upset at my wife, let's say. I'm getting upset at her, but you know something? I don't have to get upset. And boom, that could be enough.
yeah.
This A second thing is the self-talk. Now, self-talk isn't just any self-talk, because if, let's say, I'm doing something that's not turning out well, the self-talk like, "Oh my gosh, Mitch, you gotta do this harder. You gotta do this more. You're
Mhm.
just an idiot. You're not trying hard enough."
Right.
That's not self-talk that's
Yeah.
helpful. The self-talk that's helpful is self-talk that opens us up, like,
Yes.
"Hmm, maybe there's another way. Maybe this person isn't completely wrong. Maybe this isn't the only way to do something. Maybe I should look at some other ways." Either questions or opening up self-talk, which is probably, what you do 2 to 3 times a day. That is another way of moving us away from our survival reactions
Yeah.
into our, resourceful reactions. And then the third thing is distraction, because sometimes our anxiety or our fear or our momentum is just so great that we just can't get out of it. We're angry at somebody, we're upset about a situation. And the distractions could be something like mindfulness, okay, or
Yeah.
meditation, or it could be taking a walk, or taking a walk in nature, which is even
Mhm.
better, and appreciating that, oh my gosh, look at that tree, look at those leaves. Or it could be listening to music, or making music, or art, or everybody's going to have
Right.
different ways of doing it, but when you just when you can distract your survival anxiety instincts, they naturally calm down,
Yes.
and those stress hormones, which had been flooding your brain, dissipate, which gives you the ability to be resourceful again. And so those are really the 3 things that we can do for ourselves in order to get out of that limbic survival mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's not enough, and we need somebody else.
Yeah.
And when we need somebody else, it could be a friend, it could be a spouse, it could be another relative, it could be a great coach. Somebody, it really helps when this other person is aware that what you want to do is get out of
Right.
your limbic mind, because very often you go to somebody and say, "Geez, I'm having an argument with this person." And they say, "Well, that person is obviously wrong. Have you thought about yelling at them? Have you thought about this?" And you're not looking for advice at this point. What you really need is for somebody to be coaching you about how to relax. And so then once you're relaxed, your coach or your other person or you yourself can start tapping into your ability to be creative, to critically
Yeah.
think, to connect with other people, to be curious. But the first step is that relaxing. So those are the 3 things. First,
Yes.
begins with self-awareness, and it
I
can
agree.
be self-talk, and it can be distraction, and there's times where we just need somebody else, and it helps for that other person to be knowledgeable about the fact that we're first looking to calm down our limbic brain.
Yeah. I agree. And I thank you for that because being aware is you do have to be aware. The awareness is a level of accountability saying, "You know what? I've got things that I want to work on." And, you could say need, but the wordplay does matter for you because sometimes when we say the word need, then we automatically shut down because we're like, I need to do this, so now I
Mhm,
wanna do it. We have a rebel in our head, right?
mhm,
So, you wanting the changes, you wanting to get out of survival, you wanting to write your own story. I
mhm.
don't think there's anybody on this earth who does not want to write their own story. They just may not have the environments, the people, the support.
And they think
And
they are,
yeah,
because they think that their story is their reality, or the
yeah,
reality is their story,
yeah.
but they're not writing it.
No.
They're just reacting.
They're defaulting to
Right.
just what's been handed over. or what's, the default of what's been given to them. And I really I'm glad that we are in the spaces to where we want to change that narrative for so many people. Those that want to be changed, want to change their narratives though, because you have to want it. At the end of the day, people, you have to want change. You have to be aware that there are changes and modifications in life that you want to see for yourself,
Mhm,
and you've got to take action to make that happen. And if you don't, the one thing that I want people to understand is don't get upset when people don't want to be around you because you choose to stay in that negative story, that victimized story
mhm.
with the victim mindset, because I'm not taking away from experiences as someone who has endured trauma, violence, and everything else. I am not taking away from anybody's experiences. However, the shift of my mindset let me know that I am not my past and it's not going to define me. My defining moments are on this podcast. My defining moments are when I'm speaking with clients, when I'm on stages speaking. Those are my defining moments because that's the level of resilience that I really love that I have. And I love that you teach about that too. Um,
And you bring it out in the people who come to you for coaching, okay?
Absolutely.
Because you're able to talk to them and reach out to them from a genuine point of
Yep.
curiosity and empathy, and that comes through.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. I appreciate that. As we get ready to wrap up, where do you feel that we can create more compassionate spaces in our homes, communities, and within ourselves? Like, where do you think that we could really, someone that may not know and listen to this podcast today, what would be some insight that you could share with them to maybe get aware?
So, when you talk about within our home and to me, it's like leading to with other people. So, with other people is really it sounds like I'm pushing my book, but that's the whole purpose of my new book, which is
Oh, we're going to ask about the
conflict.
book. Go
Okay.
ahead. So
Conflict and collaboration.
we're
But
going to, and it'll be in the
okay.
show notes, guys. So,
Okay.
but go ahead.
First of all, it's approaching the conversation when you have with these other people in your family, in your workplace, with a sense of curiosity and connection. If you're limbic, if you're anxious or you're angry or you're judgmental, nothing that you say is going to register with that other person because they're going to pick up you think I'm wrong. Well, I think you're wrong. And that's the end of the conversation. So the first thing is to approach those conversations. You have to be in resourceful mode first
Yeah.
with a sense of curiosity. And then the things that you can use, and you can look them up on the internet. You don't have to read my book, but motivational interviewing is a method for asking people questions so that they're aware of their own ambivalences and they talk themselves into their own desire for change. You can only do that if you're starting off from a position of resourcefulness and curiosity and
Yeah.
empathy with the other person. So, motivational interviewing, nonviolent communication, and strength-based feedback instead of saying, "This
Mhm.
is what you did wrong." It's like, "I noticed that you did this, and that shows this type of strength, and if you really wanted to improve, you might try this as well."
Mm,
So, this combination of those 3 things, strength starting off with empathy, but
right.
motivational interviewing, strength-based criticism, and nonviolent communications, that's kind of the crux in my mind of how you change your household. You help other people find ways of connecting with themselves and also connecting with you.
I love it. I love it. Yes, please tell us what the name of the book is, by the way.
Mind shifting, conflict, and collaboration.
I love it, y'all. I love it. I love it. So, yes, the information to grab that. And please, Mitch, let them know where they can find you at social, website, all that good stuff.
Sure. Well, the easiest thing, my name is Mitch. So mindshiftingwithmitch.com. And there's links from there to everything. My
Okay.
newsletter is mindshiftingwithmitch.blog. But if you just remembered mindshiftingwithmitch.com, you could
Then good
get
to
to the
go.
newsletter also. You could get to the books, you could get to the courses, there's a link there. So if you wanted to,
Okay.
to schedule some time to talk, I'd love to talk to people.
Uh, As we get ready to choose finish up here, I just want people to understand this, right? Just because you have been surviving does not mean you have been living.
Right.
And that was one of the biggest realities that I had to come to terms with. So I want to tell you, it's never too late for you to elevate your life. It's never too late for you to activate who it is you want to become. But it is going to involve some work on your behalf, a lot of work on your behalf. It's gonna involve rewiring that mindset. It's gonna involve you being open-minded, a little vulnerable, but ready to collaborate and connect with those who are gonna help you make that happen. All right?
And Coach K would be a great person to connect with to make
Thank
that
you,
happen.
Mitch. I appreciate that. Sometimes we just may need that person to have that conversation that's outside of who we know and who has just been okay with us surviving. But it's time for you to thrive, okay? So, if you have not subscribed to the channel by now, I want to definitely make sure that you do that. Mitch, any final words before we get out of here?
Well, I think today is a great day to make magic, and I just encourage everybody, make some magic today.
All right. Sounds like a plan. I'll take it too. You guys, I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Share this with somebody who's ready to shift their mind, who's ready to elevate, and who is ready to talk mindset with Mitch. All right. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered.